Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to hear about Winlink Wednesday, or Winlink Express. My name is John Hill, KF5VO. I've been a ham for about 6 years now. A little bit about my history. I used to work for an internet service provider 20 years ago, and working with...
So rude.
We'll turn this down for the moment. So I was saying, been a ham for about 6 years. 20 years ago, I worked for an internet service provider. This was in the days of dial-up when everything was slow. So Winlink fills that niche pretty well, the slowness factor. I think it's kind of cool that some people, engineers mostly, can intertwine their profession with a hobby in some form or fashion. And that's one of the reasons why I gravitated to Winlink. So what is this presentation? We'll start with what it's not about. Okay, I'm not going to give you a history of Winlink. I'm not going to explain how the Winlink network works. I'm not going to give you a list of reasons why you should use Winlink. If you're here, you probably already know all that stuff. And most importantly, at least for right now, I'm not going to try to troubleshoot your system.
Gee, thanks.
We can do that afterwards, but not right now. So what will we cover? We'll cover how email works in general, how to compose messages using templates with Winlink Express, how to use your packet session. We'll be doing VHF packet for this demonstration. And we'll talk a little bit about the Winlink Wednesday net. Okay, we'll start with how email works. With any email address, it's really divided into two basic parts. You have your username and your domain name, and it's separated by the @ symbol. So in this case, my email address, KF5VO, that's the username, @arrl.net. That's the domain name. When you send an email, it will look for the domain, send it to that domain. Once it gets there, that domain will look for the user account. Email is a client-server application. You have the client side, which in this case would be Winlink Express. Any email program that you use, whether it's Gmail or Outlook, that's your client side. That's what you interact with. That's what you bang on the keyboard with. That's your client side. The server is the SMTP server, or the mail server. So that's what takes the email in, sends it out. So when you send an email, you type it out here on your program. It goes to your ISP's email server. It determines where it should go, out to the internet. Then it goes to the recipient's email server, then they can look at it. One of the neat tricks with email in general is if you do not put the domain name, the email server will assume that it's a user at that particular domain. So if you're sending to someone else that has an email, like if you're using Gmail, you have a Gmail account and you're sending to another Gmail account, you only need the username, you don't need the domain. That works with pretty much every mail server. A good way to test that is send an email, just the username. If it's to a different domain, it'll bounce back saying that username doesn't exist at whatever domain you're using. So back in the days of dial-up, you had your computer, you connected to a telephone with your modem. Your modem would call your internet service provider. It would do the handshake, hear all the noise, check your account, make sure you're paid up. And then once it connected, that was your gateway to the internet at large. So Winlink works very similar to that. You have your computer, Winlink Express on it. Instead of a telephone, you have your radio. It connects to another gateway, which is a gateway to the internet. Same concept, different hardware. And speaking of hardware, I'm sure you guys didn't come here just to look at slides, right? So what we'll do, I'll tell you a little bit about my setup here. This is a Kenwood TM71A. I didn't buy it special for Winlink. It's the first mobile radio I got, so that's what I'm using now. For TNC, I have the Tiny Track 4. And again, I didn't buy this specifically for Winlink. When I originally bought it, I was going to do APRS with it. Since then, I bought a new radio that has APRS built in, so I have an extra TNC. We'll also demonstrate using a sound modem. This is a SignaLink. And again, I did not buy it specifically for Winlink. This is something I bought originally to do digital modes on HF. So it's something I had laying around. I have a new HF radio that has a sound card built in. Extra hardware.
I'll give you $5 for it right now.
I didn't say I wasn't using it. And of course, this is just a mag mount. Over here, this is a Kenwood THD72. This is the older model. It has a TNC built in. And I just have a Winbook tablet here. I have this set up with the Node software on it. In the past, I've tried connecting to nodes outside locations, and I'd have hit or miss trouble, so I thought, why don't you just set up a node to do for the demonstration? So that's what that is.
Each one of those nodes has a different email address. It sounds like you're going to try to send a message from this side of the table. That's not.
Yeah, it's not, the node has a call sign attached to it.
Okay.
So the call sign you can think of as a phone number to the ISP if you're relating this back to dial-up. So this radio will call that radio.
Yeah.
All right, we'll open Winlink Express. Now, this looks like an old message. We'll delete it. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to tell you about, with Winlink Express, you can have multiple profiles set up in the program. So I actually have 3 profiles set up. My own, KF5VO, that's the one I use most often. This is K5LRK, that's the Lake Area Amateur Radio Club's call sign. And then I actually have my wife's call sign in here. She's a ham, and she did give me permission to use her call sign. It works great for demonstration. All right, so to do messages, it's very simple. There's a message menu item here. Click it, tell it new message, and it comes up with your new message screen. Nothing out of the ordinary there, right? One of the strengths of Winlink Express is the templates that you can use. And to select a template, you just use the menu item select template. And as you can see, well, you may have a hard time seeing. I can barely see it. It says standard templates, and it gives you a version number. So the current version is 1.0.111.0. Every time you open Winlink Express, if you have internet connection, it will actually go to the Winlink website to see if you have the latest version of the templates. My recommendation is if it tells you to update it, go ahead and update it. So you can expand the menu item, and there's a lot of sub items here. So what we'll demonstrate is an ICS 213 form. So in your menu items, you have, here we go, ICS USA forms. You expand that, and here's the 213. And you can either double click on that or tell it select. So when you select a template, what a template is, it's an HTML form. Everybody's seen an HTML form, right? So what you do, the main advantage of this HTML form is formatting. You know, again, something human readable. This looks like, if you've taken any of the FEMA classes or an OXCOM class, you've seen the 213 form, right? If you haven't, it looks very similar to this. So what we'll do, we'll tell incident name, we'll fill this out. Do Cowtown Hamfest. Then who you're sending it to. I'm going to send this to my wife's call, KG5ETE. Who is it from? K5LRK. Subject, Winlink test. Okay, and there's a date and time field. It defaults with the current date and the current time. You can leave it as is, or you can change that if you want. And you type your message. Never type during a live demo. Okay, on this form, there's an approved by box, KF5VO, and my position is peon. Okay.
So why is that you're not putting the @ domain at the end of this?
The question is, why am I not putting the @ domain? On this form, you're just putting this is who I'm sending it to. This isn't necessarily the email address.
Oh, okay. This is just a form in the body of the email. It's a memo.
Yeah.
Okay. So normally that would probably be, headquarters, towel distribution.
Yeah, it could be, send this to the incident, who's it to? Incident commander, or, somebody at the EOC, head honcho at the EOC, whoever, It's just a general human readable name you want to put there. Okay, once you get the form filled out, there's a submit button. When you click submit, it gives you a little information box. You can read that if you want, but essentially tell it okay. Okay, and once you do that, what happens is the browser goes away, and this is our message that we created. It will automatically put in everything you filled out in the form, it'll put in the message body. It has numbers, so this is numbering the items on that form. As you can tell, it gives you a default subject, and there's an attachment there. So what the attachment is, it's an XML file that contains all the information that you've entered in. What that XML file does is when you receive it, you can double click on the attachment, and it will open up in your browser and fill that form out. With the 213 form, it never really puts anything in the 2 after you submit it, so you have to give the address, okay? Since we're using Winlink, I'm sending from a Winlink account to a Winlink account. That's the same domain. Therefore, you don't need the domain name. So a lot of times when you read about Winlink or watch videos, it says, just put the person's call sign in. Well, the reason why is the call sign is a username. And you don't need the domain name because it's going to the same domain. But if you wanted to send it to an outside email address, you would need the full email address because it's a different domain, right? So if I was sending this to my Winlink account, I put my Winlink username, which is my call sign. And if I want to send it to my ARRL account, I have to put my whole ARRL address. Okay, so this one, we'll tell it my wife's email, KG5ETE. And the next step is to click Post to Outbox. So when you post to Outbox, that does not actually send the message.
Can you send to multiple addresses at once?
The question is, can you send to multiple addresses at once? Yes. For this purpose, I'm only sending to one. But typically on Wednesday, Winlink Wednesday, I think I have 173 addresses of everybody that's checked in. And so I'll send the reminder, hey, it's coming up. So it goes out to everyone. Okay, when you click Post to Outbox, that does not actually send the email. It puts it in your Outbox. So our Outbox is right here. And there's the message. The reason why it does that is, again, it takes a while to send a message at 1200 baud or 300 baud, depending on your connection. So the point is, compose all your messages, then send them all at once. So that's why it doesn't send it immediately. With email nowadays, it's so fast that we don't even think about it. It does it automatically. But this is more of the old school style. Okay, so we're actually going to send this message now. We're going to send it from this radio to that radio. Yeah, this may not be the best antenna or whatever, but I'm going, 1.5 wavelength. So I think a little loss is okay. So what we want to do is select our session type. The drop-down box, we're doing packet Winlink, so that's what we're going to select, and we'll click Open Session, and the next screen comes up with our session. One of the things I recommend is you check your settings. If you haven't done this in a while, or if you change something, make sure your settings are correct before you actually send. So what I would like to do is click on Settings, Here's the packet TNC type. Since I'm using the Tiny Track 4, there's actually a list there, or an item in the list for Tiny Track 4. It's set up on COM port 5, so you select your serial port. And we're doing 1200 baud. And everything else you can leave as it is. Click update, and that restarts your session. So one of the things that I like to do, I always turn the audio down when I do this at home, but for demonstration purposes, it's kind of neat to be able to listen to what the radio's doing. So we'll turn it up a little bit. Cross our fingers and hope this sends. All 1.5 wavelengths. All right, so to start the session, you click start. You can hear them. So they're talking to each other. It gives you a little status of what it's doing. You get a status bar. Sorry. You see the green status bar that's goes from left to right? That means it's sending. When you receive, it'll go the other direction. And it'll take it to sending, and it's complete. One message sent. Now that message was 1 kilobyte. That's how long it took to send 1 kilobyte. So think about that when you send a picture.
No YouTube videos.
Yeah, no YouTube videos. This is why they tell you when you create the message, use plain text, because it's the shortest message possible.
So the caps are twice as much data?
The capital letters, you mean?
Yeah, capital letters.
Capital letters, twice as much data. No, it's ASCII data, so it doesn't really matter if it's capitalized or not.
Okay.
So it's an ASCII character is an ASCII character. Another question.
Will you walk through channel selection?
Walk through channel selection. Okay. Yes, I will walk through channel selection. Once I turn this down. Okay. If you don't know which node to select, what you can do, when you have your packet session open, and this is for VHF, you have your channel selection here. What this will do is it'll show you a list of all of the channels close to your location. And it bases that location on the grid square you type in when you're setting up Winlink. So I live in McKinney, so I put in my grid square for McKinney. There's two different ways to update the information. Update table via internet and update table via radio. First time you do this, I recommend updating via telnet. It can take a while with radio, plus you have to already connect to do it through radio. So if you don't know any of the nodes in your area, you want to update through telnet. So for my location, these are the different gateways, and it lists them in order of distance, the closest to the furthest. And again, you can tell it, kilometers or miles in your setup. So this one, the KF5VO-10, that's 6 miles from my house. I think it's a little further than that, actually. That's a Carrollton node. It's a pretty good node, pretty reliable. When you double click on the node, what it will do is it will put the name of the node here in this box here. So that's the equivalent of the phone number. So this one is, I have it set up as KF5VO-11. I have a node at home, KF5VO-10. So that's how it knows this radio versus the radio I have at home for that node.
What dial frequency?
Dial frequency. When you do the channel selection and you double click on the node and it puts in, what it will do is it will actually have a warning, or not a warning, but an information box to say, this node is on this frequency, make sure you're on it too. But if you forget, because it goes away once you connect, in your channel selector, it'll tell you the frequency that node is on. and it'll tell you the baud rate. Gives you the grid square group. I have public and MCOM selected on mine. And again, that's set in the settings. If you don't have MCOM in there, okay. So this node is a local node. It's not really hooked up to the internet, so it's not going to show in this list. So that's why it's not there. That's why I forgot to show it.
So if you were hooked up on your, did you realize that there was a node out there and by some sort of ping or how?
Yeah, the node's phone's home. The ET it phone's home to the Winlink to let it know that it's up. So if you've ever gone to the Winlink app of the nodes, that's how it tell you where the nodes are.
But you're transmitting, you're the guy in the field here.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to show up as a node on this list.
No.
Everybody who's running Winlink at the house is going to end up in this.
No. Okay, so the question was, if you're running Winlink at home, up on this list. No, this is a list of nodes you connect to. So if you remember back to the
Mail servers.
yes, these are the mail servers. So these are the gateways. Remember the other graphic? Let's see. So it's essentially a list of what your ISPs would be. If we want to go back to that. Okay. That is what link internet. Well, it's just like email, right? You're not, well, I guess nowadays with smartphones, everybody has internet connectivity. Before that, you only got your email when you checked it, right? Same thing.
But the recipient does not have to be online. It'll just sit there waiting for them until they get online.
Correct, just like any other email program. Okay, so I'll instead of using the TNC, we will use the SignaLink. Again, the SignaLink, if you're unfamiliar with these, it's a sound card that hooks to your radio. So what I'll do is I'll just unplug the TNC, the tiny track. Then I'll plug this in. One of the things I love about the Kenwood is the data port in the back. Unplug one, plug the other in. It's plugged into the computer. All right, and we're selecting Packet Winlink for our session, and we'll open the session. So if you remember, I told you to check your settings, right? Because I did make a change. I'm no longer using the TNC, I'm using the SignaLink. So we'll change our settings. A SignaLink is a KISS modem. Does anybody know what KISS stands for?
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. Okay. With the sound cards, they're set up to use a virtual COM port. So not a real COM port, but a virtual one. And it does that through TCP. So if you select your serial port as TCP, this gives you the IP, which is your local host, and the TCP port. Everything else should be the same. So we'll click Update, and it's ready. So we'll tell it to start. Oh, I missed a step, I'm sorry. In order to emulate the COM port, you need the software. Either the two most popular are Sound Modem or Direwolf. They pretty much do the same thing. There's advantages, disadvantages to either one. So what I'll do is I'll open Sound Modem. With Sound Modem, one of the things I found on this, you have to check your settings to make sure it's using the right sound card. So as you can see of this, well, if you can see that, it's using for the output my computer, the headset. So we'll change that to use the audio codec. And it's already for the input device. So that's just telling it to make sure to use this sound card instead of this sound card.
So you need a separate piece of software instead of using the Windows audio to make those decisions?
Well, this is a software package.
I understand, but I can change my audio input, microphone input, output, just via Windows as well.
You can, but what we're doing here is you don't want any system sounds going through your radio, right? You only want the radio traffic going through the radio. So that's why we have a separate sound card.
No, I've got to use SignaLink. I'm just trying to figure out, I can get codec and codec from the Windows side, but I need a separate piece of, I'm trying to make Winlink work and I'm failing, so that's what I'm trying to determine.
So you're trying to get me to troubleshoot your system?
No, I'm just trying to figure out, is there a necessity for a third-party software for the audio, and it sounds like there is.
Yes. So there's two major ones. Sound modem is one of them. That's what this is. And then Direwolf. Direwolf can be used with a lot of different systems. It can be used with Mac OS, Linux, Windows. Sound modem has a better user interface, in my opinion, because I'm used to Windows. I've worked with Windows forever. I'm more familiar with it. So what this is doing is this is emulating what's coming out of the sound card, translating that to what would go out of a modem, a TNC modem. So that's what this third-party software does. And in the setup, you have to tell it, okay, which sound card do you want me to use in order to do that? So you need to make sure that the correct sound card is selected.
So did you do all that before you started the session? When you're going strictly into the radio, just so I can make sense?
So using the SignaLink, yes.
What was the question again?
So the question is, did I set all this up before I opened the session, right?
You were using the TNC.
Yeah, so previously I was using the TNC, so I do not need an emulator. The emulator is emulating TNC, right? It's, because what's happening is your computer is sending data out, and you tell it, like we told it, send this data out the COM port when we were using the TNC.
Okay.
Right? So it was
you
sending the
didn't
data
use
out the
that
COM port.
third-party- You wasn't using the third-party software
Right.
for the TNC.
Correct, because
Okay.
the TNC has the software already built into it. This doesn't, this is just a sound card, so
So
we're
you have
using
to
the
set it up
computer
in
to have the
Windows.
software that is in the TNC.
What about radios that already have a built-in TNC, same thing as the external TNC?
Yeah, so if your radio already has it built in, like that one has it built in, so on that one, I just told it, use the Kenwood THD72. Okay. So this is running, this emulating software, and at that point you can minimize it. We'll go back to Winlink Express, open our session, check our settings. All right, we're on the TNC for the sound card modem is KISS. And again, you can select, there's several for Kenwood, if you can't see that. A couple of other ones, not a whole lot. Most of your TNCs are going to be KISS anyway. So we'll tell it KISS. It's a TCP port, a virtual port. We'll update, and it's ready to go. So we'll click Start. See if this works. Doesn't sound like it is.
Now, you have to do this whether you're sending or receiving a message, right? So at this point, this is feel like I'm checking in to see if I have any.
Yes.
This could, to the CMS, it's going to actually send and receive simultaneously. If you have anything in your outbox, it'll send it. If you have anything that you need to receive, it'll bring it in, right?
Yes, so the question is when you connect to the CMS, it will do a send and receive. It'll send anything out, receive anything in. That's why on Outlook you have the button that says send and receive. Again, that dates back to the days of dial-up when this was commonplace instead of always on. Okay. Sometimes when you switch hardware, it helps if you restart your radio.
You don't have a message in your outbox.
I think he's got one on the other side that he's about to receive.
He changed secret identities, he's going to receive email, so
So this is not the same person.
Yeah, so I switched.
you're not the same person. Modified start evolution.
Okay.
I'm not the same.
So-
Sound modem's freeware, right?
Yes, sound modem is freeware, so is Direwolf. Okay, so I did switch to KG5ETE. And helps if you turn it on. There we go. Okay. That's one of the things, one of the disadvantages of a SignaLink is there's been occasions where I've taken this to do a demo and the knobs have gotten moved. It wasn't working. As you can tell, the power button got hit. So if you do a SignaLink, triple check, not just double check, triple check that everything's working as it should be.
So is it the hardware that most people have connecting, or is it the configuring the software?
So the question is it hardware or software that people have trouble with? And the answer is both.
So any radio that has a built-in sound card that you just connect your computer via does not need a TNC?
Okay, the question was any radio that has a built-in sound card does not need a TNC. I haven't tested every radio, but the tendency tends to be no, you do not need a TNC.
Because it's the same TNC that you'd be using anyhow.
Yeah, so the same TNC. So if you have a sound card built in, if you can use that for digital modes, such as FT8 or RIDI or PSK, typically it'll work for Winlink. I don't know how to do that personally because I don't have experience with every radio, and I don't have a whole lot of experience with
HF uses TNC.
HF uses a TNC?
Yep.
Okay.
Because Windows can't react fast enough.
Windows can't react fast enough for,
Backdoor 3 or 4.
okay. A backdoor 3 or 4. Right, that's different. That's beyond the scope. This is just VHF. Okay, so this is receiving now. And you may not be able to see the status. It tells you it's connected. And here's the subject line that we sent earlier. And we see the status bar coming the other way, meaning we're receiving now. Okay. Yes, I have the D72 running as a gateway. Yes. Yes, that's my gateway that I'm connecting to. So it's just a Winbook tablet I bought for like $100. And the D72 I bought after they discontinued it. I found a used one, so I didn't buy it new. Initially I bought it to do satellite work, but I thought, hey, for this. So nothing I have up here I bought specifically for Winlink. Okay. As you can see, we have our form up. What is happening, we receive the message, it's in our inbox, and by default, the settings are, if there's an attachment, open it. If you close it, you can just double click on the paperclip icon there. Well, I see that. There we go. So this is the form, and as you can tell, it's a different form than the one we filled out because all the information's still there, right? But it's not an input box. It's just the static information that was in that XML file. With a 213, you can reply to a 213 using the 213 reply form. I'll show you that real quick. the way that works, this is our message. As you can tell, it's just a message form, and I showed you that before it was sent. So you can just tell it reply, and it opens up the reply form. So here's my initial message, never typed during a live demo. To reply to it, here's your reply, type it in here, fill out the rest of the form, click send just like we did earlier.
It appears
Yes, sir.
that form came up when you double clicked it. Is there a reason you have to hit reply? Because it appears you could have filled it out just right there and hit the...
It's a different form. There,
Looked like the exact same one.
Well,
yes, it does look like the exact same one, but it's different. The difference is it doesn't have the input boxes at the bottom. It's just a graphical representation of the form. And so so the one that's sent, if you double click on the attachment icon there, it pulls it up.
That number 9 looks like you could fill it out.
It does, but here's a box that says, how to create apply to this ICS 213. If you can't read that button, that's what it says. When you click on it, it gives you this information, and it says, pull up the message like normal, hit reply, then the form will come up that you can fill out. Okay. We'll go ahead and close some of these. Okay, now what I would like to talk about is Winlink Wednesday. I'll give you a little history on Winlink Wednesday, how it came to be. A few years ago, sounds like someone's IDing on that frequency. That's only running half a watt. That's running 5 watts, so I don't think we're interfering with anyone. Okay, a little history on Winlink Wednesday. A few years ago, our club was operating at Field Day, and one of the bonus points for Field Day was sending messages. And reading through the list of rules, we thought, okay, who wants to do Winlink? And there's one guy, it's like, hey, I've got a Winlink station, I'll do it. Okay, so there's our 100 bonus points right there. We're out at our Field Day site, and we're watching him do it, and everybody's like, oh, that's kind of neat, you know, he's using a VHF radio. I've got a VHF radio. Oh, tell me what you can see. I'm like, oh, too. So we started talking around about it, and during the discussion it came up that if you don't use your Winlink address within 400 days, they will deactivate your account. That's just something they do to clean out their software, their server. But if you keep using it at least once every 400 days, it stays open. So we were kind of grumbling around about it, and, like old men do, right? And I said, hey, I'll send an email out to anybody once a month. That way, if you check your email, it keeps it active. You don't have to send, you just have to, check it. He said, okay, you do that, that's fine. Okay, so I started sending an email out. Usually I do it the weekend before the club meeting, I would say, hey, here's what's coming up, this is what's on our calendar. Try to keep it a little bit interesting, that way people will want to check their mail, what's going on. And at first, I got some good responses. People say, oh, thank you for sending it and all that. And after a few months, well, it got to the point where I didn't know if anybody was checking this or not. Nobody sent acknowledgments. Nobody said anything. I'd mentioned it at the club meeting, and it just, it was like the quietest time of the whole meeting. So after about a year, I did this about a year, they finally asked, or I finally asked myself, I'm like, is there something more I can get out of this? Is there some way I can get engagement? So I hit the Google, and Winlink Wednesday isn't my original idea. I stole it, like any good programmer does. I steal it. So I found out there was a Winlink Wednesday net in, I think it was West Virginia. It's still going. It's mainly limited to their Races group. I think there's a net in California. And I thought, well, hey, there's a big hole right here in North Texas. So I presented the idea to the club. I said, hey, I'll run a net. It's real simple. You don't have to be at your computer like a voice net. You don't have to say from 7:30 to 8:30, I got to be there. Any day on Wednesday, or any time on Wednesday, send the email, and you're done, right? So there's a little bit of enthusiasm about that. Like, oh yeah, that's good. So I thought, wow, I can actually get some emails coming in, that way I know people are using it. And then our section manager found out we were doing this, so he let the whole section know, and then I'm starting to get check-ins from Lufkin even, Copper's Cove, there's Tyler, Nacogdoches area, and I'm starting to get some outside of North Texas. I got a guy from California checking in, a guy from North Carolina checking in, I got a guy from Canada checking in. So it's really grown, and I'm kind of glad for that. So one of the things I want to show you real quick, how do you check into the Winlink Wednesday net? Well, one of the cool things is there's a template for that. I already showed you how to do templates, right? So if we go back, menu item message, new message, and then the menu item select template. All right, and we'll expand this, and there's a menu item here called, here it is, General Forms, and the very last one, Winlink check-in. All right, click on that. This time filled. If you click in the box with this, it pulls up another. So this will default to your system time, your computer time. I prefer it to be local time. Some people send UTC and I have to go in and change it to be local. Just do local. Okay, this box says status. Free check in. And if you're doing telnet, it's perfectly okay to do telnet when you check in, by the way. I don't restrict it to radio only. If you don't have a setup like a TNC or you have trouble with it, just check in with telnet. That's quite okay. For this one, we're going to do VHF session. We have telnet, Arden, mesh. Anybody have an Arden node at their house? Yeah, okay. We're going to do packet, so we'll tell it packet. And again, this is just informational, so we kind of know what people are using. Call sign. You don't have to do the full email address. Again, just the call sign, the username. KF5VO. Okay, call sign. I didn't create this form, so I really don't know what this means. My recommendation is put your own call sign in. And here on sender, it'll default it. So it actually sends the call sign twice, and that's okay. This box says location. Please, please, please do not put home. 80% of the checking in from home. We have a few that check in from an EOC. One guy checks in from work, and that's okay, but don't put home. Okay, where do you live? Okay. No. Not here, don't do QTH. Yeah, Shack. Put the name of the town you live in. That's what I'm looking for, is what kind of coverage are we getting? All right, so we'll put Fort Worth. Okay, you can put your grid square. If you know your grid square, I believe, yeah, EM12, and I think it's HP for here. And if you're doing a VHF connection, you know what node you're going to connect to. Go ahead and put the node in there too. That kind of helps everybody know what nodes are around, which ones are used, and it's just kind of fun information. So we're using the KF5VO-11. For the comment box, if you've never checked in before, just say, this is my first time checking in. That's all you got to say. And I usually reply to those individually and say, hey, thanks for checking in. If you have checked in before, usually on Tuesday I'll send a reminder for the week, and I'll try to ask some sort of question, just to keep it from being monotonous, right? A couple weeks ago, January 8th, does anybody know the significance of that date? It's Elvis's birthday, right? So the question I had for that week is, what's your favorite Elvis song? Yeah, Blue Suede Shoes, that was a popular one. My favorite one wasn't selected by anybody. I was kind of surprised. I like Viva Las Vegas. But I'm younger, so youngish. I did like the remake version they did. Anyway, so I tried to come up with something fresh, something new. For October, I did Halloween trivia. Before the set exercise in the fall, I was trying to gauge interest on participation in the set. So I tried to come up with something just to keep it fresh and not monotonous. I think last week, the question I asked was, what are some of the best deals you found at a Hamfest? Because I knew I was coming here. And so, there's quite a few. In fact, quite a few people said they got PNCs really cheap at Hamfest. So, whatever you put in, this is my first time. You click submit. There's the information box again. Okay, so this is the information. When I receive this, usually what I'll do, here it says tab delimited, and this is all the information you entered in. So it's the time, call sign, your location, packet. Usually what I'll do is I'll copy that and paste it into the spreadsheet. So if you're using this form, it makes it very easy for me to tally all the results. When I have 70 check-ins, if I can't just copy paste, it takes forever. And I don't get paid enough to do that, right? Okay.
We'll double your pay next month.
You'll double my pay. I appreciate that. All right. Oop. We'll post to Outbox, and we won't send it for now, just for interest of time. Okay, so one of the benefits of Winlink Wednesday is it lets you practice, right? Oop. Lets you practice the software, and it lets you practice the hardware. The software, you can do that with a telnet session. You don't have to have a radio. So if you don't have everything set up, still do the telnet session. This will help you send and receive, composing your email using the templates, different session types. If you only do VHF, try HF. Try your Arden node. Try different nodes than what you normally do. Try different types of sessions. For hardware, this lets you practice your station setup. Anybody have a Go box? Is Winlink part of your Go box? Yes. If it's part of your Go box, how's it different than your home station? Use the different ones to check in so it's fresh on your mind. Also, your station operation. Every node I can hit at home on 25 or 50 watts, I can hit on 5 watts. So just practice. Practice makes perfect, right? Or at least good enough. The next thing I like to say is, I want to see what I've talked about today. I want you guys to put it in action, okay? If you haven't logged into Winlink Wednesday, I expect to get a check-in from you this week. If you don't have the radio equipment, there's a room full of radio equipment out there that you might be getting a good deal on. All right, thank you.
Question?
Questions?
What's the percentage of RF check-ins versus telnet check-ins?
If I answer that, it would be just a guess, the difference between RF and telnet check-ins. I would say probably 60-65% RF.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Probably about 35 telnet. I won't kick you out for doing telnet. If you check in with telnet, that's perfectly okay. Any other questions?
What's the hottest stock to buy now?
Like I said, I'm sure there's at least one TNC out there.
I had a question, Dan.
Yes.